All right, Dr. Jha, so that was some key points in chapter 5.
Right.
Now, in chapter 6 dwells on the crucial areas of health and education in India. Can you please throw some light on your analysis of these crucial sectors? So just a little bit about chapter 6, I think.
Right. Thank you very much, Tejinder. So health and education, as I think everybody will recognize, are fundamental to economic performance. There is a lot of literature in economics which says that education, or the building of human capital, is the most significant contributor to economic growth in various parts of the world. That has to be recognized, and to be well educated, you have to be healthy as well. So you can't impart education to a sick person. The person has to be healthy in order to get that education. So central to India's progress in the future is its performance in the health and education sectors of the economy. Now, what I do in this chapter is to look at India's performance in various areas of education. For example, primary education, secondary education, tertiary education, technical education, and so on. And the performance between across males and females as well as across different ethnic groups. I do that in a comprehensive way. And the principal conclusions from this chapter are, first, that India's performance in the education sector, particularly in the lower areas, for example, primary education, secondary education, has been quite good. In fact, the gross enrollment ratio is very high in India, particularly for girls. It is very high, but the enrollment ratio starts to drop off when we come to tertiary education. So this is a point of concern. The another area that I talk about quite a lot in this chapter is the fact that the Indian economy has not been able to spend as much on education and health as various other countries, developing countries, have, as a proportion of GDP, not in absolute amounts, but as a proportion of GDP. It has not been able to spend substantial amounts of money, and the reliance on the private sector is growing in both in the areas of education and health. So the state is actually pulling away to some extent from these areas. So as you would also know, there are various private schools and private hospitals all over the country. And but about 40-50 years ago, there were mainly public schools and government hospitals and government doctors all across the country. So that has also occurred. So, but nevertheless, India's achievement in various areas is significant. It has rapidly reduced its illiteracy rate. The hardly 10% of the population was literate at the time of independence. Now it is more like 68%, and there are a huge number of graduates of various kinds. We have a huge number of technical personnel of various kinds. In the education sector, India has performed very well in the areas of for example, complete immunization of children. It has reduced infant mortalities very significantly. It has drastically reduced child mortality and mortality related to childbirth occurring in women. So it has done all that. There's significant progress in other. There are key areas which stand out for policy attention. One is, of course, the low expenditure on health and education. That needs to be improved a substantial amount. India is currently going through a demographic dividend, a tremendous demographic transition, whereby the median age of the population is 27 years, which means that more than 600 million people, which is more than the entire population of North America combined, is below the age of 27. So there is a huge potential for India to make sure that these people and these young men and women and children are healthy and are given the right amount of education, right type of education, so that they can be tremendous workers a few years down the line. In the year 2030, India will become the most populous country in the world. It will have more people than China, the largest country in terms of population. So by that time, India attains that situation. It needs to address these educational and health gaps, which I have outlined in the book quite clearly. So it needs to address those, and it needs to revalue and revamp its education systems. It is university systems. I have given a number of suggestions on how to revamp the university system, because I have my personal experience having taught in Indian universities for several years. I know it from inside as well as from the government reports and the papers. India's health system also needs a lot of improvement, particularly in the area of public health. For example, in the area of cleanliness and making sure that people have access to good, safe, clean drinking water and toilet facilities. This is tremendously important. There is well-defined research to show that if you could provide Indians with clean drinking water, you would drastically reduce the incidence of diarrhea, which is one of the most prevailing problems for young children in India. You would drastically reduce the incidence of diarrhea among children and various other groups, and diarrhea causes a lot of loss of productivity. As people become sick, they can't go to school, or they can't go to work, or whatever. So these things are spelled out at length in the chapter. It traces the evolution of government policy towards health and towards education, and it basically the same story gets repeated, that India has lost a lot of time in not addressing these issues front and center right from the beginning, but now its policy is now in better shape. People have realized the importance of these matters and they are addressing it. So hopefully better late than never. So we are going to make some significant progress in these areas as well.